The views expressed on the Nova Society are those of the panelists and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Phoenix Research Institute or any institution which any panel member is associated.
So welcome back to the Nova Society. I'm your host, Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, and I'm here with my panel, Dr. Scott Gershwer and Dr. Mark Bound. Today we will be answering listener emails. And for the next few episodes, we will be answering questions about American reaction to some of Trump's proposed policies. So everybody, let's get ready to dive in. We have a question from Michael, who lives in Sacramento, California. Michael asks, it appears that the party of law and order, in quotes, is all about pardoning white-collar criminals. He, Trump, has pardoned Todd and Julie Chrisley, who were sentenced in 2022 for defrauding banks of over $30 million. Of course, Trump says they were treated unfairly. Since most of MAGA is working class, how do you think this will play with his base? That's an excellent question, Michael.
Is the premise of this question is that most of MAGA is working class? Is that true? I'm not really sure.
I'm not sure. I mean, if you look at the news and you look at who they interview, I mean, again, as we were talking before, it's how these news networks want to portray. I swear, CNN can find the dumbest person in the room, and that's who they're going to portray as MAGA. So, but the premise is, I believe, that all of MAGA is working class.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I will say this. I mean, in his first term, on his last day in office, Trump pardoned a guy named Jamie Davidson, who was found guilty and serving a life sentence without chance of parole for killing a cop. He didn't pull the trigger himself. He handed a .357 Magnum to a 16-year-old and told him when he's talking to this cop that he should sneak up behind him and shoot him, which he did. And the policeman is dead. This was during a buy and bust sting operation. They didn't know he was a cop. They just thought he was a drug buyer, I guess a retailer. But Jamie Davidson had the good fortune of having a lawyer who was connected to Trump's kids in some way, and they petitioned Trump to release him, and Trump let Jamie Davidson go. He subsequently got in trouble for throttling his common law wife or his girlfriend, ended up going back into jail for a while, but I believe he's out now, living somewhere in Florida. So the idea that this is just white collar criminals, no, not necessarily. Trump is willing to pardon anybody who likes Trump or knows somebody who likes Trump or has some kind of connection to the Trump inner circle. I'll say this. Remember the movie Goodfellas, where they introduced the Jimmy Conway character played by Robert De Niro, and the voiceover says Jimmy rooted for the bad guys in movies. That's what Trump has become. He's rooting for the bad guys. And the Chrisleys are just, two of many people recently that he's given pardons to, based in some cases on, in one famous case, the mother's support of Trump going to $1 million a plate fundraiser or something like that, whatever that was. And then saying, I should get the specifics of this. Okay, the guy's name is Paul Waljak, okay? I'm not probably saying that correctly, but sorry. He pleaded guilty to tax crimes, okay? What this guy did was he owned a nursing home, I think it is, or a series of nursing homes, and he, over a 3-year period, withheld more than $10 million from the paychecks of nurses, doctors, and other people who worked at his facility, with the pretext that he was using it to pay their Social Security, Medicare, and federal income taxes. Instead, he used that to buy a $2 million yacht and to pay for travel and other purchases at places like Bergdorf Goodman and Cartier, prosecutors said. And so for over a 3-year period, stole $10 million from the taxpayers of the United States of America. He pleaded guilty, admitted that he did it. He is not in prison yet. And now, thanks to Trump, he won't be in prison because he got a pardon. He got the pardon because his mother went to a fundraising dinner that cost $1 million per person at Mar-a-Lago. And a few weeks later, Trump signed a full and unconditional pardon. So, I mean, that seems to me blatantly corrupt. And I'll let Mark take it from here.
Well, I guess my first question, and you've brought up this case before, and it really is on its face value an egregious case. When you have law enforcement, somebody in law enforcement, basically assassinated. And I guess my only question is, does this show, and I understand the way you've laid it out, Scott, I really do, that, somebody knew somebody who knew somebody. I always have to ask myself, thinking that Trump really hasn't had an independent thought in so very, very long, I wonder if he even knew the case, or somebody just put the thing in front of him and he just signed it. And the fact that he signed it and let this person out is in itself egregious. There's no doubt about that. But the fact that there's a huge possibility that he didn't even know what this was about makes it twice as egregious in my mind. You're the president of the United States. You are doling out pardons. You should be looking over, every dotted I and crossed T and make sure of what you are doing. And I just don't see Trump being that dutiful or that studious in this whole thing. And to me, yes, the pardon is definitely egregious. I totally agree with you, Scott. But if he honestly didn't know and was only doing it because Jared or somebody came up to him and said, "Listen, we're gonna pardon this guy," and he just signed it, that makes it even more egregious in my mind, because he's not paying attention. And I think, in some cases, like this recent one that the emailer wrote in about, they're former reality stars. I never watched their show. I have no idea what it was all about anyway. But, so that might be the only thing he knows about them. He might not know anything else about them. Or there was a recent one, and I can't remember the guy's name, that he pardoned for basically fraud, a really rich guy. And it was just the fact that he was a rich guy. Maybe he had no idea of the fundamentals of the case, or the extent of the crime that was being committed. He just associated rich guy. Okay, he must be a good guy. Reality TV stars. Yep, they must be pretty good people. And a friend of a friend of a friend, he must be okay. And having no concept of what the real cases were about. And to me, that is the most egregious part about this pardoning. I guess that would be the only thing I could say about it.
So,
what do you think,
yeah.
Scott? Do you think he just signed it just to sign it, or what? I think he did.
I mean, I don't think it really matters whether he knows about it or not. Doesn't, I
But
have
a
no way.
reasonable
We have no
person,
way
it
of
would
knowing.
matter to.
Yeah, it would, but these are different cases, and look, let's be clear. The Jamie Davidson case, where a cop killer serving life without chance of parole was pardoned by Trump, was on the last day of his first term. Okay, so clearly he waited until he was out of office. He's going to be out of office. He had already gone through January 6th. He had already tried everything that he could to stay in power. And he realized that he was leaving, and maybe this was just kind of an FU on his way out. Maybe this was just he kind of owed it to whoever it was. It was Victoria Tunsing and her husband, whose name escapes my memory. But that's one case, and it's not. And I just brought that up because it's not a really wealthy person who's been convicted of fraud. This is an actual cop killer who handed a 16-year-old a gun and told him to shoot somebody, and then was found guilty by a jury of his peers. In the Chrisley's case is kind of interesting in that, well, number one, yeah, they're reality TV stars, I don't know how much reality there is in what they do. I've never seen the show like you. I've never seen it. I know that the reality show that Trump was on was not a reality show. It was scripted, and very often he would keep the wrong person or something like that, and they just kind of rolled with it as best they could. But in this particular case, these guys got a trial. Todd and Julie got a trial in front of a jury. After 3 weeks, they were found guilty. Bank fraud, tax fraud, conspiracy to commit bank fraud, conspiracy to defraud the United States, tax fraud, and Julie was convicted of wire fraud as well. They appealed it, and all the courts of appeals found them guilty. The 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals upheld those convictions. So they're serving time. They have, on good behavior, I guess, gotten lesser sentences, but they're still in prison. But they are wealthy people who did exactly what Trump did. And in Trump's case, doing it in New York, it's a civil violation. And Letitia James, thank you. Letitia James, as the Attorney General of New York, got a liability against him for an incredible sum of money, which he probably hasn't paid, for the same thing that these two were dragged in front of federal court in Georgia. Now it's federal court. So maybe it doesn't matter where they are. I'm not really sure what the difference in the cases are that made one federal trial and the other a state. But in any event, they got their trial and they were found guilty. They appealed it, found guilty, appealed it, found guilty. And what we're talking about is a tidy sum of money, $30 million, which started, by the way, before they were TV stars. And it's exactly the stuff that Trump used to do, fraudulently declaring that he had money in the bank to borrow more money, and then fraudulently, it's like a Ponzi scheme backwards. So in this particular case, I think Trump wants to invalidate the finding against him by pardoning these people who did the same exact thing that he had done. And so there are different motivations for different things that he's doing. But basically, let's talk about the net. And Mark, you may have more of an opinion on this than I do. He's undermining the judicial system the same way he's trying to undermine so many other things. And, if he can get his followers to go out there and go, man, the courts, they're just against all these Trump people, and it's the courts, man, they're rigged against us, that kind of thing. Then, as I said last week in one of our podcasts, he's becoming O.J. Simpson for black people, if you understand what I mean there, in that they looked at their lives and said, the history is that the judicial system and the penal system is against us. And by gum, we're going to have O.J. Simpson get away with murder, a double murder, and that'll sort of expiate the, all the suffering that we've had. And I mean, it's a crazy way to think, but the grievances of the Trump people, of MAGA, seems to be along the lines of the system's rigged against us. That's why we can't be millionaires like Trump. And Trump is our millionaire, or now our 5 billionaire. And that him getting away with these things means that we're getting away with these things. Right. And it makes sense to them in some twisted way.
And I would agree with you that it is undermining the system of justice in the United States. And in fact, it didn't make our top 5 list this week, but a bunch of our listeners wrote in about the Sean Diddy Combs trial that's going on right now. It's in federal court. And their question is why are we bothering? Trump's just going to pardon them anyway. And it was there's some possibility there. And I think, and I do understand, and I really do wish that it was the chess game that Trump is playing. I honestly, in my mind, I think that when we talk about his last day of office, when he was presented with this cop killer and he pardoned him, I don't think it was his thought. I think it was somebody else. I think that he was walking out the door. Hey, Mr. President, can you just sign this? Yeah, sure, fine. And if you look at the way the administration works, that kind of plays out. That he really doesn't pay attention to much of anything.
But in that case, though, Mark, his pardon attorney turned them down.
Right.
Like, there is a pardoning office.
Absolutely.
And the pardoning office was like, oh man, we wouldn't touch this one guy with a 10-foot pole, like this guy's a cop killer serving life without parole. And so there probably are a number of these where he's just going around or over his own pardoning office and saying, oh no, we're going to let them go. And maybe he has a reason to do it. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's paying attention or not. It's his administration. He's got to take ultimate responsibility for everything. And, I can't answer you whether it's more egregious or less egregious. It's fucking egregious. And that's the bottom line.
There's no doubt. And it is egregious. But like I said, to me, it's like if somebody else, I always look at the Trump administration at this point, Trump's the figurehead and it's all the little minions under there. So you're right. He's got that pardon group of lawyers that probably, if they have any common sense of the law, looked at this and said, are you people out of your mind? Who actually put in for this pardon? Who would think that this would be even a legitimate case to do it with? And somebody like a Jared Kushner or an Ivanka or somebody went down there, grabbed a hold of the piece of paper and said, hey, Dad, can you sign this? And, dumber than a rock said, yeah, sure, fine, no problem. And that to me, and I say the word egregious, it just shows the chaos. Because you're right. I'm sure that the pardon attorneys were, and again, I can't say this because we weren't there. I don't think there was a single pardon attorney in the room when he was signing it who would have been screaming and jumping up and down saying, what the hell are you doing? This is insane. It's probably just that little group that gets in with them that basically has them do these things, and it's for personal reasons. And that's why I see it as more egregious than anything else. But you're right. The whole thing is bad, and it just shows that bottom line is the President of the United States is not really paying attention to much of anything.
No, he's not. And the pardon attorney from before was discharged with barely time enough to clean out her office. She's given like 10 minutes or something because she refused to give Mel Gibson back his gun because he had threatened a girlfriend or something with a firearm, and he'd lost his gun right, and the pardon attorney refused to give it back to him because he didn't meet the criteria, and she was told, well, the president, he's a friend of the president, Mel Gibson's a president's friend, and Trump would appreciate, and this and that, and she ignored that and refused and was discharged very shortly, like the same day. And now Ed Martin is in charge of the pardons. So of course, anybody who wants a pardon is going to get one, I would assume, since Ed Martin didn't pass his senator confirmation. I forget what it was for with the DOJ. Now he's been installed as the pardon attorney or the head of the pardon office, whatever.
Yeah, I think it was saying nice things about Nazis, actually, Brooke.
Yeah.
Well,
now he is in charge of pardons. And
he was first up to be the D.C. main solicitor, or the main prosecutor. And
that's the one.
Now we have Judge Jeanine Pirro. So now I guess you have to ask yourself which one of those two schmokies was worse.
I don't know. But I was looking at the Chrisley and the statement that they were treated unfairly. And of course, that's always Trump's big grievance about himself, that he was treated unfairly. Yeah. And so all a person would have to do is say, oh, here's reality TV stars, and they've been convicted unfairly. You don't have to say anything else. And the minute Trump hears the word probably TV reality star and convicted unfairly, he's going to sign whatever. because it's unfair to them. And also look at the January 6th defendants, with Pam Bondi saying, well, we're going to go over each one very, very carefully. And of course, Trump just signed 1,500 in a bulk pardon because he couldn't be bothered to go over each one. So yeah, I think that that you're correct.
And all I can say to the MAGA people is, other than the traitors from January 6th that were pardoned, all the rest of these people, other than the one that Scott mentioned, they are not like you. Those two reality stars are not like you. That millionaire who was treated unfairly is not like you. And if you think that your grievances are being addressed by these pardons, that, I'm getting away with it, I'm sorry, they're not like you. You're not in the club. You may be MAGA, and you may wear your silly little red hat or have your silly little koozie with Trump's face on it that says never surrender. The fact is you're not in the club. You think you're in the club, but you're not. So hopefully we answered that one. Hopefully.
Yeah, but I do want to just
go ahead, Scott.
Back to this to this one point, which really may really just be about discrediting the judiciary altogether, and the entire system altogether. And unfortunately, the press kind of is going along with it. Unfortunately, Biden helped him by preemptively pardoning a whole bunch of people, which I understand he probably did in order to prevent them from having to go through the weaponization of the DOJ and so on against them for political reasons. I get it, but it definitely undermines people's confidence in the judiciary. And undermining people's confidence in all these institutions seems to be the Trump playbook. And for whatever reason, I don't want to speculate, but I'm sure Vladimir Putin's loving every second of it.
So, Michael, I don't know. Did you want to add anything else, either of you?
I think we beat that one to death.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just add this. You mentioned Glenn Kirshner. Glenn was on with us during the election season. And I brought up Jamie Davidson to him, and he even asked me to send him the particulars about it, which I did. And I don't remember, I don't follow every word the guy says or anything like that, but I don't remember any mainstream media or anybody bringing up Jamie Davidson's pardon as something that law and order types would recoil at against Trump, and it never came up. So there seems to be, I don't know, I'm not going to say complicity, but at least not fighting back real hard when it comes to, as Mark says, egregious.
Thank you, Michael, for your question. Then do stay safe, take care, and we'll see you all again next time on the Nova Society.
The Nova Society is a production of Nova Society Media, a division of the Phoenix Research Institute. We'd like to thank our production partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing partners, Apple iTunes, the largest source of podcasts and music on the internet, Spotify, the most popular platform for the Nova Society, and iHeartRadio, your source for all things music and podcasting. The Nova Society is available on all of these and other quality platforms listed in our description. We'd also like to thank all of our listeners. Without your support, the Nova Society would not be possible. If you have a question or comment, we can be reached at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. So for Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, Dr. Scott Gershwer, and all of our production partners here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Remember, the true power in society is knowledge. Thanks for listening, and we will see you again next time. We'd like to thank our sponsor for this episode, BH Conflict Resolution Services, a full-service dispute resolution firm offering expert, cost-effective mediation services to couples, groups, and businesses. BHCRS can be reached at www.bhcrs.com.